Good day, Mike Mata here. We're going to talk about a product from Performance Vision. And this tool allows you to take a look at what's going on in the network from the application's perspective, as well as what's happening in the network based on different dashboards that are available to you and different protocols that we can look at. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to show you everything here, but I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of some of the features from the application perspective. I'm going to look at the last 2 hours, so I chose here the predefined time intervals, and I selected the last 2 hours, and you can see here it shows from 13:52 to 15:52 today, July 5th. Happy Independence Day for those of you Americans from yesterday. There you go. So we're going to take a look at the last 2 hours, kind of what's happening. You can see here we've got some red for the different applications: SQL, Web, ERP, HTTP, internal, etc. Over the last 2 hours, it looks like the SQL server's been a little slow, and slow meaning end user response time is over 150 milliseconds. So if we highlight here, let me just zoom into that for a second. You see the end user response time was 365 milliseconds. Round trip time from the client perspective, 115 milliseconds. Round trip time server, 94 milliseconds. Server round trip time, 151 milliseconds. Data transfer time client, pretty quick, 98 microseconds. And data transfer time server, 4 milliseconds. And processing there, 2,331 flows. So moved a lot of data, but as we see as we go across the timeline here, the end user response time is, kind of slow there, 200 milliseconds. Let's move on up, 238 milliseconds. So end user response time, not real good. We can drill into a little further if we would like to, but over here we see the traffic on that particular server, a little over a gig, 1.2 gig. How many transactions? 479,000 transactions. We can look at our HTTP here. We see sometime there is good, and sometimes we have some response time. Ooh, that's kind of ugly. Here in the Midwest, we call that real ugly, over 2-second end user response time. People are probably going to complain if they're waiting for 2 seconds for screens to refresh. Here we've got a yellow. It's still kind of ugly. That's over a second and a half end user response time. And we can see a lot of that, 1.5, 1.2 of that, if we make that a little bigger, 1.2 of that 1.5 is server response time. Basically, that is application processing time. So the client makes its request. It takes the server a second, 0.2, to actually come up with that information. There's one. Again, 2.3 end user response time. And of that, the server processing time is 2.1 seconds. So we kind of have a place to start. If someone's complaining, we can look, and there's where we would probably start our troubleshooting process, is to figure out why did it take the application, the server and the application 2.1 seconds to find the content. Here we can start drilling down from that, looking at that particular application. We can look at the app dashboard for that particular application, HTTP internal, and it'll start plotting things for us in graph. So we can see here the sum of the application performance, the sum of both data transfer time, client and server about 32 milliseconds, server response time average, a half a second, 532 milliseconds, sum of both server and client response time, 65 milliseconds. We had a big peak there. That was kind of a big peak at 20, almost 30 seconds. That's kind of a long time. on server response time. Yeah, 29 seconds right there to find something, obviously, server response time. Let's take a look. So during that time, there weren't a lot more transactions. Actually, there was only 34 transactions. That was even less at that peak of 30 seconds. And we can look down a little further. We can see then the breakdown by server. We had over a server response time of, again, 1.2 seconds to find application data. So very quickly we can kind of point our finger when someone says the network is slow. We can say, well, probably not. In this case, it looks like the server and or the application is the culprit of being slow. And the beauty of this is we haven't really looked at any packets to figure this out. So stay tuned. We'll try to do some more videos and show you a little bit more about this wonderful tool from Performance Vision. Thanks. Make it a great day.